Welcome back to the Truth Factory. I want to comment on the recent false missile alerts that have gone out. On Saturday, January 13th, Hawaii residents were bombarded with this message on their phone. Ballistic missile threat inbound to Hawaii. Seek immediate shelter. This is not a drill. This text went out to thousands of people, and the same warning was played on television. So naturally, everyone panics, thinking that they may only have minutes to live. Some call their loved ones, some seek shelter, some even lower children into storm drains. This is absolute chaos and pure terror. I mean, what would you do if you received a text message telling you that you may only have minutes to live? And this took nearly 40 minutes before authorities announced that this was a false alarm. Hawaii claimed that this happened due to a manual error where someone pressed the wrong button in a drop-down menu. Now, this seems like an incredibly horrible interface for a national security system. If this system really is this bad, I'm surprised this didn't happen sooner, and I suppose I can buy the whole Urkel excuse, you know?
Can I do that?
This would be a lot easier to believe, though, if it weren't for what happened yesterday, which was just about the exact same thing, but in Japan, where alerts went out on the television claiming that North Korea had launched a missile at them. Those false alerts went on for 5 minutes, and this was also explained with the same excuse of human error. I'm suspicious about this because Japan does not typically shit the bed on things like this. I mean, this is a country that issues formal apologies when trains leave stations 20 seconds early. Japan runs like a very oiled, meticulous machine, so an almost identical Homer Simpson type blunder just coincidentally happening in the same week in two different countries? Although it's possible, anyone with an IQ above a slice of toast should be questioning this narrative. I also don't think news sources are connecting the dots here that the Trump administration had just approved a $133 million anti-ballistic missile sale to Japan last week. Russia's been complaining that this deal violates an arms control treaty. The United States has responded to Russia's complaints with basically saying, no, it doesn't.
Well, Russia is unhappy with plans to expand Japan's missile defense systems. The Russian Foreign Ministry says the U.S. deal to supply anti-missile equipment to Japan violates an arms control treaty and is part of a bigger American plan for a global anti-missile system. Moscow says the deployment will also damage relations with Tokyo.
I personally have no problems with this Japan deal, as the missile system, as far as I know, has been designed for self-defense only, which is something Japan should probably have based off of current tensions and even just historical events alone. With everything I've mentioned, I personally believe that these alerts were not a coincidence and not an accident. And I've developed 3 plausible theories on what could have happened here. Theory number 1, and perhaps this is the most likely, this was some sort of beta test. The United States and Japan, it seems, have both amped up security protocols in case of an attack from North Korea. So of course they would want to test their systems to make sure everything was functioning properly. Now, the last time that there were real fears of the United States being under attack with nuclear weapons was during the Cold War, which ended almost 30 years ago. Back then, no one had smartphones, and today emergency information is more easily accessed, allowing more time for people to find shelter. So it's plausible that Hawaii and Japan were just testing their emergency systems as a simulation to see how people would respond in the event of a real attack. 30 minutes is a pretty good time frame to see and test how well local authorities are prepared to react in such a situation. And in 5 minutes, like in Japan, is a good time frame to test how quickly people could take cover. Even if this was done for the good of testing national security, of course America and Japan could not openly admit this without a lot of people getting really mad. So it's easier to pass this off as human error. Oops. Theory number 2. This was a psyop. Even just on a subliminal level, the headline makes the threat of North Korea seem more substantial. This could be an attempt to get an emotional response from people and to make them believe that North Korea really is a threat to justify taking out Kim Jong-un without any real provocation.
How real it felt for almost an hour to think that a ballistic missile is going to hit not only my home, but all of Hawaii and potentially affect the entire world.
Intelligence agencies could also be gathering information on how people react on isolated islands when the threat of their world ending is believed to be real. Do they take to the streets? Do they commit crimes? Do they listen to authority? Who do these people call? No, but it's like a sick hypothetical situation played out in real time, and all of that information would be interesting to intelligence agencies, as I'm starting to be convinced that sociopathy is a mandatory trait to work at an intelligence agency. Theory number 3. These systems were hacked. This is not that hard to fathom, as news stations' emergency broadcast systems in the past have been hacked to tell us things like the dead are rising from their graves and attacking people, and that the zombie apocalypse is upon us. And that was probably just one troll from 4chan who smoked too much weed who did that. So it's definitely possible that a hacktivist group like Anonymous could have done this, but I'm not sure what the motive would be. There's even a popular mechanics article written about the logistics of this very theory. But rather than a hacktivist group, I think it's much more likely that a country with a motive would be behind this. Perhaps say like Russia, who has expressed disagreement with the recent missile deal. This could have been them flexing their muscles as a statement to Japan and the United States not to mess with them. Or perhaps it was Israel and the Mossad. Now before you start typing you're an anti-Semite, let me explain. North Korea, at least the way I see it, does not actually want nuclear war. That would be suicide for them. And North Korea has recently been moving towards talks of more openness with South Korea. That's a really good start for potential peace talks, and I don't think that's what Israel wants. Israel and North Korea have a very hostile history. In fact, they're absolute enemies and have been for decades. North Korea is this rogue country without central banking and is not easily controlled. North Korea has also supplied missile technology to Israel's neighbors, including Iran, Syria, Libya, and Egypt. In the past, Israel has also called for world action against North Korea's nuclear weapons program. Basically, North Korea is a huge thorn in the side of Israel. So it's not completely unrealistic to think that the Mossad could have hacked its allies' emergency systems, perhaps under the guise of even North Korea itself, in an attempt to strike fear in the hearts of people to gain more public support for stronger measures against North Korea. Especially now that it seems that Kim Jong-un is trying to be less of a dickhead. Of course, if these alerts were the result of hacking from any country, there is absolutely no way that America or Japan would admit that their security systems were this vulnerable. So the best excuse would be human error. Any of these theories are possible, including that it could just be coincidentally human error in 2 different countries in the same week. It's possible. And perhaps I'm overreaching here, but I'm a little suspicious of the mainstream narrative of this story. To be fair, I'm suspicious of most mainstream narratives. But let me know what theory you think is most likely, or if you have a theory of your own. Thank you again for your support, and if you like what I do and you want to give me a tip, I have a link in the description to my PayPal, Patreon, Maker Support, or Bitcoin wallet. Thank you and have a great night. Meow.